Hi, I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner Sandy Merman. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you how important it is to take time to prepare and make a plan for hurricane season.
I'm Tim Dudley, your emergency manager. We've learned many valuable lessons over the years and want everyone to be as prepared as possible this storm season.
In these uncertain times, it's more important than ever to have a plan and be prepared. COVID-19 has shown us that coming together as a community and being resilient is key.
Our team is working hard to keep Hillsborough County ready for any disaster and to provide our residents with resources in case of a hurricane.
To make sure you're ready this year, the first thing you need to do is to sign up for HCFL Alert. You'll receive current emergency information by phone or email.
Next, make a plan with your loved ones. Knowing your evacuation zone and evacuation route is crucial. If you have to evacuate, consider reaching out to friends and families that live outside the evacuation zone to see if they can host you.
If staying with friends or family isn't an option, you can always consider hotels or motels outside of the evacuation zones.
That's right. Hillsborough County emergency shelters are lifeboats, not cruise ships. They should be considered a last resort to keep your family safe.
If Hillsborough County emergency shelters are your only option to evacuate, come prepared. You'll need some additional items this year, including face masks, gloves, hand sanitizers, and other personal items.
At Hillsborough County emergency shelters, you should be prepared to practice social distancing and come with your emergency kit and the items your family needs. Remember, shelters are not a resort. Their last resort. They won't offer any amenities and resources may be limited.
During storm season, you should also keep your gas tank full and keep your emergency kit close at hand.
Make sure to check supplies in that kit, including medication, radio, flashlights, and batteries.
And as we mentioned, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, please include face masks or coverings, hand sanitizers, and gloves.
I want to echo what Commissioner Merman just said. These additions are essential for your health and that of others, especially if you need to go to a county shelter.
In addition, do not forget to pre-register loved ones who require special needs accommodations. Hillsborough has programs in place to help those individuals prepare and find safe shelter.
And don't forget about our furry friends. You'll need food, a pet carrier, proof of current vaccination, and your animal's county registration tag.
Have a plan, know your plan. For more information, please visit hcflgov.net/stay safe. Thank you.
This is a battle we've never faced in my lifetime. I want to tell you about 416 of the most amazing people. Every day I get to see their skill, professionalism, and dedication. Their commitment to protect and improve the health of everyone in Hillsborough County. The last 2 months, they've been on the front line of a battle with a very dangerous enemy, COVID-19. And they've risen to the challenge in the most amazing, heroic way. Everyone has contributed, sacrificing their personal life, which they put on hold. They're making a difference for everyone they help, and every day I get stopped and told just how amazing they are. I'm proud and blessed to work with them, my second family.
Hillsborough County, along with local and federal health experts, are encouraging residents to wear cloth face masks to cover their nose and mouth when in public to help stop the spread of COVID-19. There are not enough surgical face masks for everyone, and available ones should go to healthcare workers and first responders. It's easy to make your own face mask out of common household items. The CDC and U.S. Surgeon General say you can use an old scarf, bandana, or make one using a t-shirt plus 2 rubber bands. Cut part of the t-shirt into a square, fold it from the bottom to the middle, then from the middle to the top. Repeat those steps one more time Then add a rubber band to each side. Bring each end to the middle, then secure around your face. They should fit snugly but comfortably. Cloth face coverings should not be placed on children younger than 2 years of age or people who have trouble breathing. The CDC emphasizes that while wearing a face mask, you should still practice social distancing, stay 6 feet apart from others, and continue other preventative measures such as frequent hand washing. We encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/stay safe for up-to-date information.
Is your local business or organization looking to give back to the community? Help keep our roads clean by joining the Adopt a Road program administered by Keep Tampa Bay Beautiful. Keeping our roads clean is a great way for team building as well as exposure for your business. Select the road your business wants to adopt and dispatch a team to remove litter and debris. Participants will receive 2 signs showing their organization's name as well as safety equipment and instructions for cleaning roads. You can help keep Tampa Bay beautiful by adopting your own road today. To learn more, visit hcflgov.net/cleanhc.
Hello, I'm WWE superstar Titus O'Neil, and today I'm coming to you as a neighbor. You owe it to yourself and those you love to get tested now. Get the care you need and protect your family. Hillsborough County is offering free coronavirus testing and no health insurance is needed. It costs you nothing to get tested. Visit hcflgov.net/stay safe for more information and have a reservation made today. Share this with a neighbor, and let's come together as a community and keep fighting to get through this. Together, we will come back stronger. God bless.
So let's say that Tim here was returning to his vehicle only to find it missing. He may think it was either stolen or towed. Let's not worry too much, Tim. Hillsborough County wants you to know the rules and regulations should you find yourself stuck in this unfortunate situation. Here are a few rules and tips you should know. Rule number 1, permission to tow. Towing services need permission to tow from private property and must post signs with telephone numbers saying that the trespassing vehicles will be removed. If your vehicle is missing, look for a sign and call the number. Rule number 2, communication. As soon as your vehicle is delivered to the local towing facility, towing services must notify local law enforcement within a 30-minute time frame, and they must return calls from vehicle owners within 1 hour. Helpful tip number 1. Law enforcement can help motorists determine if their vehicle has been towed. If you don't see a posted sign, call the authorities on the non-emergency line. Rule number 3. Retrieving your vehicle during a tow. Most people are unaware that you could still retrieve your vehicle while connected to the tow truck. For a drop fee of no more than half the towing rate, the tow truck operator must release the vehicle to its owner. When it comes to payment, tow truck drivers must accept the following: debit, cash, cashier's check, or money order. Rule number 4, personal property. If the owner is unable to pay the drop fee and their vehicle is in the hands of the towing company, owners still have the right to retrieve personal property from their vehicle. Helpful tip number 2. Having a registration and title in your name will make it easier to recover your vehicle. Tow companies will not hand over the vehicle if you are not the registered owner, unless you have an original notarized affidavit signed by the registered vehicle owner. Remember, Hillsborough County is here to help you. For complete, detailed information on towing rules and regulations, please visit us at hcflgov.net/consumer protection or give us a call at 813-635-8316.
Hillsborough County has opened a majority of its conservation parks, trails, and nature preserves to give residents additional options for recreation and exercise. While parks can provide an escape and excitement, county leaders are urging residents to take precautions to protect themselves. To help stop the spread of COVID-19 while in public places, use common sense. Stay home and avoid parks if you're feeling sick. Practice social distancing. Avoid groups or gatherings larger than 10 and stay at least 6 feet from others while exercising. In addition to social distancing, Hillsborough County leaders continue to urge residents to wear cloth face coverings when in community settings. bring your own water. Though parks are opening, many amenities will remain closed. Prepare for your visit by packing necessary items like hand sanitizer, and it's a good idea to bring your own disinfectant wipes to wipe down any public surfaces before touching or when touching public equipment. But remember, don't flush them after using. Residents who do not abide by the social distancing requirements or listen to instructions from county staff while enjoying the parks will be asked to leave the property. We encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/stay safe for up-to-date information. Hillsborough County has teamed up with the Department of Health and other public health and safety agencies to address any impacts the virus may have on our local community. To help prevent the spread of the coronavirus, here are a few tips you should know. Practice proper hand washing by using soap and water and wash for at least 20 seconds. Use alcohol-based hand sanitizer if you cannot wash. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Cough and sneeze into a tissue and throw it away. Clean, high-touch surfaces frequently. Some examples include doorknobs, credit and debit cards, cell phones, keyboard and mouse devices, and toilet handles. Stay home if you're feeling ill. If you have any flu-like symptoms, avoid contact with the public. Avoid sharing personal items in spaces with those close to you. Seek medical care early if you're feeling sick. Symptoms of the coronavirus can include fever, coughing, and shortness of breath. Seek medical care if you develop these symptoms or if you've been traveling or have been in close contact with a person who has traveled from an area with an ongoing spread of COVID-19. We encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/stay safe for up-to-date information and tips.
Hi, I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner Sandy Merman. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you how important it is to take time to prepare and make a plan for hurricane season.
I'm Tim Dudley, your emergency manager. We've learned many valuable lessons over the years and want everyone to be as prepared as possible this storm season.
In these uncertain times, it's more important than ever to have a plan and be prepared. COVID-19 has shown us that coming together as a community and being resilient is key.
Our team is working hard to keep Hillsborough County ready for any disaster and to provide our residents with resources in case of a hurricane.
To make sure you're ready this year, the first thing you need to do is to sign up for HCFL Alert. You'll receive current
I'd like to call the Hillsborough County Tourist Development Council to order. Good morning, everyone. Is the clerk on? Someone that can call the roll? If we have a quorum?
We do not have a clerk, but I believe Ms. Williams facilitated that role last meeting.
Is she here?
Yes, sir, I'm on.
Would you please call the roll? Good morning.
Yes, sir. Jane Castor. Bob Morrison.
Here.
Frank Chilura.
Here.
Jeff Antonacio. Jim Bartholomew. Joe Collier.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Lou Placencia.
Here.
Nate Kilton.
Here.
Richard Gonsmart.
I just joined. This is Jeff Antonaccio. I'm not sure if you should call by name or not.
Yes, sir, I did. Thank you.
You're
We
welcome.
have a quorum, Ms. Williams?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Is there anyone signed up for public comment?
No, sir. No public comments.
Okay, thank you. I jumped over the minutes. We need to approve the minutes for the June 11th, 2020 meeting. You should have received those minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, we have a motion to approve those minutes.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Morrison,
Second.
second by Ms. Antonio. Well, you know what I'm talking about. Hearing no further discussion, please call the roll on the minutes. Ms. Williams?
Yes, sir. Bob Morrison.
Yes.
Chilura.
Yes.
Jeff Antonacio. Jeff Antonacio.
Yes, sorry, I was muted. Sorry.
Joe Collier.
Aye.
Lou Placencia.
Aye.
Nate Kilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Motion's approved.
Okay. If you're not speaking, please mute your mic. We're getting some feedback. So if you're not speaking, please mute your mic. Thank you. Administrative report, Mr. Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. If you could pull that first presentation up on the administrative report. Thank you. As we do in each of our meetings, I wanted to give you an update on the financial status of the TDC. Much like we did in the last meeting, we've actually prepared 2 documents, just knowing the circumstances that we're in. We've been bringing you an update for not only the quarter that we are meeting in and reporting for, but we've also been able to add in the last 2 meetings the next month as well, because obviously we're just tracking ourselves and cash flow to be prudent. And so what you see up here on the slide is the 3-cent portion of the TDC. On the left-hand side is the third quarter report. And on the right-hand side, we've added July on there as well. We've covered most of these items. There's not a lot of movement. We do continue, obviously, to make some collections in the revenue, and we'll go over that trend line in a minute. But you can see the revenues, both for the third quarter and then adding July as well. And then on the expenditure side, the middle column are the expenditures that are made during that third quarter, or in some cases on the right-hand side, we added some payments for July on the right-hand chart. Really, the operative thing here is obviously we've worked with the Sports Commission and we deferred any payment in the current fiscal year to the Super Bowl. And we also, thank you, Nate, and Plant City. We worked out an arrangement for them to defer any activity on the sports complex at Plant City. And so by the grace of those two, we're staying in the green related to the TDC function. So I might direct you to the right-hand column for the third quarter where we had $12.2 million in revenues. And down at the very bottom, well, not before the reserve of the $800,000, we were at $10.6 million. And then when we had July in, we had $12,958,000 in revenue and $11,019,000 in expenses. So we're tracking well. We did some adjustments in addition to the deferment of any payment on the Super Bowl or the Plant City project for this year. We made adjustments pretty much to all the rest of the recipients and worked with them. As you well know, we've tried to pay out as much as we can to Visit Tampa Bay, but we certainly aren't hitting the contractual amounts. We made adjustments so that we didn't dig a hole for ourselves, and the same thing for the other recipients. So we managed to the crisis almost immediately so we didn't overspend. We'll be in good shape. The one thing that I'll say here, since that you can see that we've managed the cash flow well. I've talked with Santiago and others, and what I'm going to do here in the last month and a half of the fiscal year, I'm going to scrub our numbers, and what we'll be doing is a one-time release at the end of this fiscal year with everything that we can. So the good news is we managed our cash flow situation. Basically what I'm saying is I'm going to scrub all the numbers, and to the extent that we can release funds, because we have kind of tightened the belt, then I'm going to release as much as possible. Obviously, to Visit Tampa Bay first, because they've taken the biggest hit of all of our partners in this belt tightening exercise. So that's the big picture on that one. James, if you could move to the next one. And the same for the 3 cent. So we did a third quarter on the left for the, I'm sorry, I said 3 cents, 6 cent. And on the right, a 6 cent with third quarter plus July. Again, one of the things that we did in belt tightening is we reached out because we knew that we had made an early expenditure to fully fund the convention center contract. And we frankly had done that before COVID. So we knew we were going to have to make some adjustments with the reduction in revenue. So we reached out to the cultural and attraction-based venues, and other than projects that they had already started, they were gracious enough, much like Plant City, we basically asked them to defer all projects in that side. And so that gave us a chance to make sure that we didn't get underwater on the 6 cent. And so our thanks go out to the venues that were going to get funded there. Obviously, they all closed. They understood the issues, and we'll be working through those as well. So again, the operative numbers there are the 4 million. I have to go to my paper copy because I can't read the screen very well. I'm sorry. So on the left, we have 4,071,000 in revenue and 3,396,000 in expenses. So we are tracking well. We didn't go underwater. So we have a little bit of flex in there. And then if you go on the right-hand side of the 6 cent where we added July, again, you pick up the July collection. So we got 4,319,000 in revenue. And then after you add the expenditures, we're at 3.4. So basically in each case, the 3 cent and the 6 cent we're about round numbers, we're about $800,000 ahead on both. That's really your sound bite. So for the 3 cent, we're about 800,000 ahead on revenue over expenses. And on the 6 cent, we're about 800,000 excess revenues over expenses through July. So we'll have some extra funds, I believe, irrespective of the collections for the balance of the year. We'll release everything humanly possible that we can release. I'm going to stop there. Any questions on those financials? James, if you could. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Any questions? I don't see anyone's hand.
James, could you go to the next slide? So again, to report out on collections, remember the yellow highlight is when we converted over from 5 cent to 6 cents. So it's just a reference point in the historical collections where anything previous, we were collecting 5 cent. Anything from the yellow on, we're collecting 6 cent because this is the total collections on the left-hand side. So you can see the trend on the FY20 collections in the darker bold on the left. And then when you go to the right-hand side, what we've done there is report out the 3 cent. And because that's the apples to apples, 6 cent is not in there. We can see the percentage reduction is a true metric. And so I'll direct your attention to the annual change column, and you can see obviously the impacts of COVID pandemic on our industry. But coming in with the July number, which reflects the June activity. So it does pick up, and I know Santiago will talk about this some, but that change in reduction was a result of the reopening under the governor's order of certain activities. So you do see a reduction in the decline. But as we've talked about, we're going to continue to monitor that to see what our trend line is. So that's the collection data. James, if you could go forward. Again, they'll always look the same, but these are the trend lines for the 3 cent and the 6 cent and the 4th and 5th. They're not going to look any different. The only difference is the scale of the collections, but you can see the comparison to previous year and how we're tracking. If you could, James, move forward. One of the other questions that you had asked me in the last meeting is where we're sitting in our reserves. So I've done a summary sheet here of our unrestricted reserves for the 3 cent, the 4 cent, the 5th cent, and the 6 cent. And so you can see kind of where we sit right now in reserves that we could allocate or that we can use under circumstances that we deem appropriate. And no surprise, the 6 cent is first year of collection, so we've not, we did try to build some up, but we don't have much. And then Julie, Wisdom, we'll talk a little bit more about the 4th and 5th in an overarching, particularly as it relates to debt service obligations that the county has related to the 4th and the 5th. I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions on this summary.
Any questions? If you have any questions, there's a hand signal on your icon there. You can raise that, and I'll see your hands. And I'm getting a lot of feedback. Okay, I'll see your hands, Mr. Martin.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, remind everybody mute if you can.
Yeah, please mute your mics. I'm getting feedback, please. Okay, Mr. Martin.
You could you, and TDC members, that concludes my financial report. One of the other things that you asked us for was an update on the 4th and the 5th. as it relates to the debt service and obligations associated with that. Julie Wisdom with our county team is here to join with us. And Julie's done a PowerPoint presentation, which James will pull up. And she'll walk us through our current look at the fourth and fifth as it relates to the obligations. And so I will turn it over to Julie.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Ron. So I am with our management and budget department and spend a lot of time analyzing the fourth and fifth cent tax revenue streams. So hopefully you will find this informative, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end. James, can you, there we go. All right, so you're going to see this information presented again and again and again, not to belabor it, but the key takeaways from this graph kind of are outlined there to the right of the graph, but it appears that monthly revenues are now steadily improving from the low that we saw in April. For the balance of FY20, our internal projections are forecasting average monthly collections of about $150,000 per month, which is well below what we collected for the month of June and closer to what we collected for May, back when people were just starting to come out of self-quarantine situations and when stay-at-home orders were still in place. So we're optimistic that for these remaining 3 months, our actual collections are going to be above the 150 that we've earmarked internally. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so here is just kind of a quick overview of the debt that we have secured with or are repaying with fourth and fifth cent revenues, and I'll go into greater detail on the next slide. But your takeaways here are that we have funded all FY20 debt service payments due on all of our TDT-backed debt. That's both fourth and fifth cent. The debt backed by each penny has enough in reserves and projected revenues to last through FY21. FY22 at this point is more of an unknown. And the third takeaway is all of that said, and the stability through FY21, it's not a good time for the county to enter into any new capital funding arrangements related to the pro sports facilities. I've got Raymond James Stadium listed as well as the arena listed there, but this would go for Steinbrenner Field as well. I didn't mean to omit them. Okay, and then if you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so here, this is just a synopsis of our FY21 obligations and revenue projections. So you can see here that even at our reprojected depressed revenue level, we're still above our level of obligations. The caveat here is that the county does have an annual obligation for capital renovations to Amalie Arena. And for FY21, the county is obligated to pay up to $13.6 million for reimbursement for capital improvements that have been made under that agreement. That is a maximum. I don't know that that we'll realistically pay out that amount, but we may be asked to, and I've budgeted it as such. So, and one other note about that agreement is that our annual obligations continue through fiscal 31. So, those are going to continue to accrue basically, and, come due. And that's for quite a while. That's for, 10 more fiscal years, basically. We fund those obligations with commercial paper. So we do have the ability to delay repayment of the commercial paper if the revenues are insufficient to pay them off in any given year. But commercial paper is an obligation, it's not a gift, so that does need to be repaid at some point. If you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so here's just kind of a quick and dirty graphical presentation of FY21 for the 4th cent. So your key takeaways here, and before I go over this, let me say that I straight lined the revenues. So I'm not taking into account any seasonal fluctuations or event-based fluctuations. So you can see here that assuming that average revenues truly are equal for each of the 12 months, the blue line represents our revenue, the orange line represents our obligations. We're not really going to break even until next summer. So so that's, you know, just what the state of collections versus obligations looks like in a graphical form. So you can see that there. And then also, this does not include any payments related to the Super Bowl. So we have the ability to, you know, to commit to any ask, but it is not reflected here, and any ask would not be funded from current revenues. It would be funded from residual revenues that we have on hand. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that 4th cent has, well, and you saw from Ron's slide, 4th cent has a very strong reserve position, so we would use that to fund any Super Bowl asks. Could go to the next slide, please. And so here's a similar graph for 5th cent TDT. The big difference here is, again, I straight lined revenues for this one as well. So as you would expect, the same break even is occurring next summer. The big difference with this one is that I've factored in the lightning obligation, or the Amalie Arena obligation. So you can see here the impact of that obligation on annual revenues. And so we currently have some commercial paper outstanding related to that renovations agreement. And I have it budgeted to be paid off, or some of it to be paid off in fiscal 21, but because of the projected lower revenues, you can only pay off so much. So what you see here is my projected repayments of the commercial paper, which are just under 8 million. And as I mentioned earlier, there is some flexibility with that. We can push it out, but it will need to be repaid at some point. So really, that's all I had for you guys. So just in summary, both 4th and 5th cent obligations should be sufficiently funded through FY21 with no impact to any of the county's non-ad valorem revenue sources. It is too premature to make any assumptions about fiscal 22, however. And again, it's not a prudent time for the county to enter into any new or additional funding agreements related to 4th or 5th cent TDT in the current economic conditions. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wisdom. I don't see any questions at this time. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Mr. Barton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Julie. So to kind of wrap up our portion of it, a couple of other takeaways I just wanted to share. Number one, we'll pay out through the balance of this year on the collections that we get, whatever they're going to be. I'm also, and I've already engaged Santiago in this conversation, we're going to scrub the balance of our numbers as you As you can see, we're building up what I'll call a soft reserve. What it means is there's some cash balance in our normal operations, and I'll make sure that we disperse all of those that's humanly possible before the end of the fiscal year. So there'll be a little bit of bump for that. And so basically where we were prudent and managed our cash flow and it's favorable, I will in turn disperse those as much as possible. That's probably the biggest takeaway. Also, I didn't touch on it, but you saw it on the bottom. We had the 800,000 overage from the previous year that we allocated. Santiago is going to talk about that deployment as part of his operations. And so you'll get a report on the 800,000 overage. And we have also started a conversation, Santiago and I, about crafting an additional ask. And I think he's going to talk about that in his presentation as well. As we had talked about in a previous meeting, we have, frankly, no reluctance to allocate some of the unrestricted reserves to begin helping the CVB market our community and climb out of this. So as we develop those various proposals, we're certainly very comfortable moving forward. And we may come back to this conversation after Santiago is given his presentation. Mr. Chairman. I think you have some questions, and I'll turn it also over to you and Santiago.
Okay. There's a hand device on your computer here. If you want to ask a question, just tap on that, and I'll be able to see your hand and call on you. If you can find it. If not, just wave your hand, and Mr. Collier, I see your hand. You recognize?
That's the only hand device I can find, right?
Okay. All right.
Since we've got Julie on the call, I had asked this question at the last TDT or TDC meeting. Are there currently any other capital requests that are sitting on someone's desk as it relates to the 4th and 5th cent already that are sort of out there that are being discussed?
Not that I'm aware of. So all of the expenditures I'm aware of that we might be asked to pay are within the scope of existing agreements.
So Raymond James and Amalie are the two horses that are there in the debt service that you're talking about. So there isn't anything that's somebody's sort of getting declined or pushed aside at this point in time anyways, right? So unless there's a request. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Any other questions? If not, will everyone unmute yourself? And we're going to have to call the roll to vote on Mr. Barton's administrative report. Is there a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to accept the report. Well, Ms. Williams, will you please call the roll to accept the report, administrative report?
Yes, sir. Castor?
Yes.
Bob Morrison?
Yes.
Frank Chilura?
Yes.
Jeff Antonacio?
Yes.
Joe Collier?
Yes.
Lou Placencia?
Yes.
Nate Kilton?
Yes.
Richard Gonsmart?
Yes.
Chairman Miller?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. By vote, the motion is adopted. Okay. We move on to the Tampa Bay Convention and Visitors Bureau report. Santiago Corrado. Mr. Corrado, you recognize.
Good morning, Honorable Commissioner. Good morning, Honorable Commission members. It's so great to see all of you, even if through WebEx or Zoom or whatever we're doing this morning. It's always so great to see all of you. Before I jump into the presentation, just a few comments. First and foremost, really need to thank our County Administrator, Ms. Wise, and Ron Barton and his team. They have been so sensitive to making sure we receive some percentage of collections that are keeping us quite busy, quite honestly, as you'll see from my presentation. So again, a huge debt of gratitude to the county. And as I was watching the presentations this morning and saw data on the 6 cent, you know, what foresight to have passed that 6 cent a few years ago, because under the current situation, we would probably not be hitting that benchmark this year or maybe even next year. So again, what foresight to have those additional dollars helping our community. And before I jump in the presentation, the last takeaway is absolutely we're nowhere where we want to be, but this presentation shows hope and shows that everything is trending in the right direction, with the exception of conventions and groups, because we know how heavily impacted those are, but all the other metrics are trending in the right direction. And so there's optimism and there's hope, as you will glean from the presentation today. So James, if you wouldn't mind throwing that up now, I think I'm ready to go. I think we can skip that one. So this first slide shows Smith Travel research numbers year to date, and that's January through June. And you see, this is just Hillsborough County. So all the information presented today, there's no Bay Area presentation of numbers. It's all Hillsborough County. And you can see our strong standing because we had record-setting January and February. And so when you compare us year to date versus Florida and the US, you can see that, yes, we've all experienced some dramatic declines, but in some cases, because we had the fortitude of a January, February, you see that, you know, our declines in some cases are in line, and if not a little bit better, especially on the revenue side. Next slide, please. So June, comparing June over June with our comp set, this looks at hotel occupancy. You can see that we have a drop there of 46%, and you see where we line up against our competing destinations, again, as grouped by Smith Travel Research. And again, you see a significant drop for us that we're not gonna, you know, try to celebrate a negative 46, but when you compare it to others, you know, solidly near the top of the listing. When we go on to the next slide, I believe we look at James or someone. Yes, here we are. Average daily rate. Again, you know, a significant drop of 22% in June, but only second to Fort Lauderdale at 21.1. And you can see how average daily rates have fared again throughout the comp set. And you see there that Nashville, Austin are near the bottom of the group, June versus June. And then the last is, you know, one of the strongest indicators of hotel profitability, and that's the revenue per available room slide. I think it should come up here momentarily. And again, you see near the top in June. I can tell you we've just recently received our July numbers. Obviously, those would be in our next presentation. Our third quarter includes April, May, June. But our July numbers, even in spite of the spike in the pandemic, we are solidly almost in the same positions for July, with a nice increase in occupancy. And it's interesting, June occupancy was 39.6, July came in at 43.9, and August through the 8th is trending at 46.5%. So we've seen this gradual improvement, again, without the convention center group meetings business that we normally see. So, you know, all things being equal, if we were to see a little bit more of that, then we would see even some more significant improvement amongst these categories. Next slide, please. So if we break down our submarkets, this is quarter three, very, very bad quarter. Obviously, the brunt of the pandemic, April, May, June. You see hotel performance there. And again, hotel downtown performance, is heavily dependent on group business and conventions. And as Mr. Placencia mentioned at the last meeting, a lot of that dissipated, obviously, for April, May, June. That has continued through July and August. with still a small handful, and you'll see that in a future slide, of stuff we're holding on through to September. But again, the closer we get to those dates, we see cancellation. So hotel performance downtown heavily impacted by convention center business meetings, small groups. Next slide, I believe, is the East County, not East Tampa, but East County submarket. And you see not as heavily dependent on the business that has been so heavily impacted. So you do see there a drop of almost 50% in revenue, but the percentage change in occupancy for that third quarter is not as significant as we saw in the first slide with downtown. Next slide, I believe maybe the North Tampa Bush area. And again, not as dependent on the same business that we see in downtown. So you do see some significant drops, but not as heavily impacted as downtown. And the last slide is the West Shore slide, and you'll see that that one mirrors more of the downtown business portfolio with groups, conventions, business travelers, again, being impacted. So the next slide that we're looking at looks at the county revenue. I'm not going to get into this because Ron and team and Julie have done a fantastic job, but it just goes to show the trending in January, February. Can't wait to get back to that. And then you see the precipitous drop in March, and then the consistent upwards mobility, but again, nowhere near where we want to be, which is back in the January, February look. So again, gradual increase as we have predicted and evolving market conditions. But what's great about this is that even through the spike of the pandemic, as I mentioned, we saw some movement, which is a positive situation for us. Next slide. So a question that's often asked is, what's happening with groups and conventions, small meetings, and believe it or not, through September of our fiscal year, we're still holding on to 11 small groups, and you see there the estimated economic value of those. And then for fiscal year 21, you see quite a lot of events and groups, and that would be from October through next September. With the exception of one group because of an association merger in March, all of those groups are still on the books for fiscal year 21. So we're hoping that things get better here as far as the pandemic, and that we can realize some of these events coming forward in fiscal year 21. Next slide, please. And so of all of the events that we've been involved with citywides, not all events, but the citywides that were impacted by the pandemic since March, we've had approximately 72% of those events rebook with us. And you see there the breakout of when those groups are going to be returning to Tampa, Hillsborough County. And what's really, really interesting about this is, and you'll see it in the next slide, I believe the next slide is the PACE report. And we already had very, very solid years going forward. PACE and I'll try to simplify it as much as I can, it's a snapshot of where you should be in booking rooms for future years based on a target. And as you can see, the number that should be highlighted is the PACE percentage going forward, and you see the 56% of 2020, obviously with what's happened, but you see going across that PACE percentage line for 21, 118%, 22, 107, 23, 139, 24, 115%, 25, 160%, then the targets obviously get smaller, but you see there even going forward 196% and another 196%. So what's happened is, because of how busy we have been in prior years loading the funnel for future years, those displaced by the pandemic have even helped, and we're placing those where we have need periods because we're a victim of our own success and there weren't a lot of opportunities to rebook. So August and September are usually periods where we're trying to book business, and some of those are landing in those positions. So again, snapshot in time, the PACE looks very, very good, and we should be very optimistic if things get better here, that we should have some very good fiscal years moving forward. Next slide, I believe, is about our convention center. We've helped market the many, many things that have been done there in a positive way, and thank you to the mayor and Una at the center and the staff for really following the lead on safety and precaution. And so this is a video we voluntarily did for them to highlight what they're all doing. I would try to channel Brittany.
Water in downtown Tampa. A lot has changed in the world today, and so have meetings. Follow along and let us show you how we are preparing to host you safely and responsibly. Right off the bat, you'll notice thermal screenings taking place upon entering our facility. Additional hand sanitizing stations, signage, one-way footpaths, and alternative seating capacities are some of the other changes you'll see during your meeting. Don't forget to bring your facial coverings, wash your hands regularly, respect other space, and most importantly, be patient as we work continuously to improve operations in this new era. The Tampa Convention Center has a dedicated touch point cleaning task force, and you'll see them throughout your meeting cleaning on an hourly schedule. They are here to help you, so please follow their direction when advised. You'll also see how food and beverage offerings have changed. Acrylic shields will be located at high traffic concessions, and you'll also see more packaged food options and single-use condiments and cutlery. Remember that we are all in this together, and safety is a team effort. For more information how to host your meeting in this new time, visit our website or link below. There you'll find information on how hotels, partners, and our airport are preparing for your arrival. Tampa Bay is thrilled to welcome you back safely.
You know, I have to brag a little bit on our team. That was internally done. All the on-screen stars or staff members in conjunction with the convention center, very little, if any dollars, I believe no dollars were spent on that other than time and our staff. So again, being very proactive to draw back that meetings and conventions business that's so critically important to West Shore and downtown. Mr. Barton mentioned the relaunch and recovery leisure travel campaign, where we were very, very generously given $800,000 from last year's overage true-up. So I want to move through what that campaign has looked like. And now I'm really going to have to channel some very, very smart folks from our office that are really the folks that are, you know, into the nuts and bolts. So next slide on relaunch and recovery. Obviously, we wanted to get out there as soon as things started to look better with the pandemic, mid-June through September. We actually did do that. We had to take a little bit of a pause. And the good thing about this is that we're very flexible and nimble with the third parties that are helping us to draw visitors here. So when you look at the time frame that we expected to expend most of those dollars and probably even supplement with our dollars June through September, we are really looking at action response. So travel intenders, people that we feel are ready to travel, not that they're going to aspire to travel here one day, but that they are ready to go. You see there the demographic, psychographics of that group. And preliminarily drive markets in the Southeast. However, with digital campaigns and with the technology that's out there, geography isn't a barrier. If you have some intent to travel to a Florida destination, we can target you and market to you. And so help you make up your mind to where you want to go sooner rather than later. So next slide, please. Again, this really focuses on, you know, the target, and that's that lower convention conversion point. Extend the reach and the conversion by utilizing multiple online travel agencies and platforms. And again, capitalize on the flexibility of digital media and the data that it provides to us. It's the ability to quickly switch out creative messaging, to pause, shift, cancel, And again, the real-time data, no opportunity to lose dollars, no opportunities to lose travelers. So again, minimize any of those errors in spending and attracting visitors here. So if we go on to the next slide, it talks a little bit about the creative overview. You know, we've got a very solid brand. You know, when we kicked off with Visit Tampa Bay and then later Florida's Most campaign, those are very strong, recognizable brands. But the imagery has changed, and it's changed in a very subtle way, right? We want to focus on opportunities to be active, but without crowds, clean, sanitized, pristine, as you saw with the convention center video, fresh air. Again, messaging designed for those that want to travel. We want to let them know that it's safe here. We want to know that they need to travel safely here. And so I think in the next slide, you will see some of the creative that supports that messaging. And so again, Florida's Most Room to Explore, back to the Florida's Most campaign, open air adventures, fresh air fun, wide open possibilities. The next clip here is a video that you might see in one of those campaigns that we have going on. So I think we'll do video here and keep our fingers crossed that it'll match the sound. I guarantee you that it sounds a lot better off of WebEx. In fact, if you go to you know, any of our social media channels, you can see it without the streaming hesitation that you hear with the sound. I guarantee you the sound sounds much better on all of our videos when we're not doing Zoom or WebEx. I've realized that through many of the presentations we've had to do over the last so many months. So to get into a little bit more detail, next slide, please. We're talking about budget allocation and results. So the next slide will show you a pie graph of how those dollars have been allocated. And for today's purposes, obviously the $800,000. You're looking though at a key takeaway from this slide of an added value of over 25% of the budget in bonus impressions from many of our partners. So when we're partnering and investing with all of these third parties that you see on the pie graph, we're being optimized by our budget spend. And quite honestly, we choose to go with these partners because of the rich data that they can provide for us so that we can look at return on ad spend, we can look at return on the investment and what it produces. And more specifically, and I think you'll see this later on, we can actually see when someone has seen a piece of this marketing, how it has been converted into a direct booking and dollars for our local hotels. And so Mr. Morrison is very familiar with this because we utilize some of these same platforms and methodologies with the Tourism Marketing District to actualize dollars spent on room bookings and the benefit to the hotels that are impacted through the campaigns. So next slide shows, you know, a slow rollout. Obviously in June, we wanted to get out there and test the waters. And you can see there a gradual spend through September. We have been here very, very detailed with the spending per platform, per partner, with a total there on the bottom right of the budget line. And again, this budget has been updated as of August 10th. But again, as I've mentioned, we can move the monies in real time to media partners when we see triggers that show return on investment and how the campaigns are flowing. And I believe the next slide or the one after here shortly, yeah, the one after this will show results. But again, launched on the 15th of June. Due to the rise in cases, we paused. We've been very, very active in monitoring not only what's happening here locally, but other parts of the state. If we see movement, let's say, in the Panhandle or in St. Augustine or in the Keys, obviously beach destinations to some extent, other than St. Augustine, you know, we move and we resume tactics August 3rd. And I can report, and you'll see the breakdown of this, that we've had over $3 million in estimated booking revenue the last month, and the stability in the Smith Travel Research numbers that I've referenced, even for July and August, despite the recent spike, suggests that we continue to push forward and engage. Next slide. So again, the media platforms you've seen the spends there. Again, the online travel agents track actual bookings, and we can actually see air tickets, room nights, etc. They give us actual numbers and year-over-year changes. And again, being very flexible with digital, really, you know, using social platforms. And when you look at connected TV, it's the most impactful messaging to inspire travelers to a destination, because it gives us sight and sound for a much less price than traditional television and or cable. So again, utilizing those dollars to remarket to consumers who have seen us in the past and really want to call them to action to come to the destination. Next slide. And so some key takeaways here. You'll see some numbers from Adara, Priceline, Expedia, and additional partners. We see that bookings continue to be short with Expedia. 63% of those bookings would happen within 0 to 6 days of seeing some of our marketing. Priceline has an average booking window of shorter than that, about 2.3 days. And in Adara, we see that Expedia and Priceline takes approximately 11.4 days, but we're seeing that the average length of stay remains to be for shorter trips, anywhere from 1 to 3 days. Next slide. You see where some of our out-of-state markets are, which are consistent with how we do our out-of-state marketing. So Newark, Boston, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia. Most of the trips are multi-adult. And again, the booking remains for 3-star hotels and below, almost 79% of those. And you see some average daily rates there that fluctuate depending on whether you're booking directly or on an OTA. You see with the direct booking an ADR of over $121, and it drops to $109 if you're going through Expedia and $93 through Priceline. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. So here are the Adara impact numbers from June 15th through August 10th. Remember, with some pausing in between. I'm not going to go over each and every one of those numbers. You all have the presentation. You see the number of room nights booked and the total revenue. And again, that's enriched Adara impact data, which includes not only the observed booking channels, but others, other data source partners that are also using imagery and marketing. And again, if we're looking, we're having some folks booking here at home, but we're also seeing, you know, some bookings from Orlando, Miami, in-state, and again, New York and Washington, D.C., as from the prior slide. And then some Expedia data. You see what that data looks like. You see some of the hotels that have been impacted here locally, length of stay around 2 days. And so, again, you have this data in your report, in your package, so I'm not going to belabor that. Next slide, and then again, you see the same thing here for Priceline from July 15th through August 11th. And as referenced before, the ADR is a little bit lower. Length of stay is about 1.6 days, and you see how many room nights were booked through Priceline. Next slide. So if we were to continue this recovery strategy, and we would add some additional dollars, and you know, just off the back of an envelope, if we're talking about $1 million, we would really look at a very, very heavy hit and recovery strategy to occur during October through January. We're already trying to impact those months by what we're doing now. So going forward, we would really, really roll into some other heavy campaigns October through January. And I think the next slide would speak to, again, using the same sort of strategy so that we could really, really focus on triggers, and we could really focus on return on ad spend, and really look, again, to work with these third parties to continue to either follow suit if the numbers, the triggers are looking right, or emphasize other markets, other areas. And again, we're looking at about 800,000 to continue in that realm. And you see there, again, lower funnel activity, a two-pronged approach to get a return on ad spend, of course, looking at drive inspiration, and again, using, a lot of the same partners to really focus on bringing travelers back here. And again, we could show anywhere from a 3-to-1 to 7-to-1 return on ad spend based on the numbers we have preliminarily seen. Next slide. And then the other 200,000 would really be on top of some of the things we're already doing to bring back convention sales. As you see, closely work with our convention sales team, the convention center, continue to build this awareness of new developments. In fact, we've just kicked off a new video series, On the Horizon, which focuses on new lodging, retail, restaurant developments that are happening here at home. And again, this reassurance to meeting planners that we have all the safety protocols and continuing to build that brand awareness to bring back, that business that's so needed downtown and in West Shore. Next slide. And that's really it. And obviously, that $1 million spend could be very, very flexible. If we would need to shift some of those dollars to convention sales, convention focus, we could do that. We're in a financial position right now based on the very, very proactive steps that we took in March. And all credit goes to our board of directors at Visit Tampa Bay for taking immediate action to make sure that, we're still here to do this presentation for you and show some of the progress that's being made on all fronts. And again, the variables all continue to point in the right direction. I think, to Mr. Placencia's point at our last meeting, if we could just get that convention group meetings market back, we would be in really good shape, to be quite honest, because, leisure travelers and transient travelers are really helping us get through this very, very difficult period. And so glad that, we can appeal to both ledgers of our portfolio. So again, I believe that concludes my presentation. Again, I want to thank all of you for your attention and your support. We speak offline about what's happening in the industry and moving forward. And so really, really do appreciate everybody's time and support of our organization at Visit Tampa Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Carrata. Appreciate it very much. Are there any questions of Mr. Carrata? Mr. Valencia, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Santiago, I just wanted to thank you for the effort you and your team are putting out here. It's I know things are tough, and I'm just grateful to everyone for sticking with it. A couple of comments regarding observations we're seeing in other markets. There are a number of very large hotels in places like New York and Chicago, San Francisco, Atlanta, that in all likelihood will remain closed, and these are larger convention hotels. There are some good accounts that were booked at those hotels, and I would just encourage you and your staff, if you haven't already done so, to potentially reach out to those properties and try to pick up some of the business that was booked at those hotels. And then also with regard to the convention calendar, the numbers you put up between October and January, I want to make sure we're not misleading local businesses. The chances of those conventions actually materializing are not good. We're seeing massive cancellations pretty much across the board, and I think that that will continue at least until a vaccine is out and readily available. So I would not be expecting this body to be receiving a lot of revenues, tax-based revenues coming from the convention market. I'm fully in support of increasing your budget in particular for leisure transient accounts and leisure transient business. So if, Mr. Chairman, if you entertain a motion in that regard, I'd like to move that this organization consider approving the $1 million request that the CVB has made today.
Is there a second? Pardon me? Is there a second?
I'll second, Mayor Castor, I'll second that. And also thank you, Santiago, for the partnership with the convention center. It's nice to know that in these difficult times, we're all.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Please unmute yourselves. Ms. Williams, will you please call the roll on the motion?
Yes, sir. Jane Castor?
Yes.
Bob Morrison?
Yes.
Bob Morrison?
Yes.
Frank Chilura?
Yes.
Jeff Antonaccio?
Yes.
Joe Collier? Joe Collier?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Lou Placencia?
Yes.
Nate Kilton?
Yes.
Richard Gonsmart?
Yes.
Motion's adopted. Yeah, motion's adopted. Are there any other questions, Mr. Carrata? Any other questions from Mr. Carrata? Do we have a motion to accept his report?
Chairman, just
Yes.
one comment. It would be helpful, Santiago, if we could get a more detailed description of where those dollars are going to be spent over the course of the next 6 months. Very specific target audiences. That would be very helpful to review.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Not a problem. We will provide that. And in fact, with the triggers that we've got in place based on the progress we see, it's very, very easy. Again, the metrics now, the systemic approach, the strategy, the technology really tracks the dollars. And so that's very, very easy for us to do. And back to your point, again, I don't want to be misleading either. You're right about what can happen between now and December. Because we've seen that happen to us now for the last 5-6 months. So what we have on next calendar year, we'll see, like you said, based on whether there's a treatment or a vaccine. But again, it's an area that we continue to monitor very, very closely. And again, thank you so much to all of you for supporting, our mission and what we're trying to do here. Really appreciate it.
Mr. Morrison, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One other observation, and maybe this is a to-do assignment for Visit Tampa Bay. We're blessed to have a significant fund balance or reserve in the 3%. I know our hotels would be excited and intrigued by what would happen if we were able to dedicate some portion over and above the $1 million to a aggressive, dramatic marketing effort to grow the level of business that we're experiencing in our market. I'm not prepared to suggest what dollar amount that might look like. My thought is just to offer to suggest to Santiago and his team, if we talked about a third of that reserve being available, what would that mean
in terms of Visit Tampa Bay and its marketing resources, and what could we possibly expect in terms of return on investment. So just a thought, we know we're in the monsoon. I don't want us to look back and see that we were going through this difficult period and didn't put all the ammunition that we have available to deploy it to make a difference in terms of our market and our hotels' short and long-term health.
Okay. Any other discussion before we accept Mr. Corrado's report? Mr. Kilton, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I guess, a question for Mr. Barton. I'm sure he's been thinking about this already. But with the significant allocation of CARES Act dollars that the county received, I'm curious of whether or not any of those funds could be allocated to Visit Tampa Bay for these types of purposes, either directly or through the TDC, to help kind of bolster these efforts.
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking. We believe we can. We're going to start looking at that issue. The first one certainly is the physical facility side. For instance, we've been in dialogue with the mayor and her staff on additional COVID-related things for the convention center. And, we're very comfortable that CARES dollars can go to that. And so that's the first level, I think, of engagement that we're very comfortable with. And then we're also hopeful that we have some leeway related to some of these CARES dollars for the destination marketing. So we're going to explore that. And to Mr. Morrison's point, we do have unrestricted reserves. We talked about this in the last meeting. The $1 million that Santiago's requested, we would anticipate coming out of the unrestricted reserves unless we can find alternative sources like you've asked, Nate. And we want to definitely look at additional deployment of dollars and the right time to do so. So, yep, we're looking under every rock to see how we can do that. And by the way, you didn't accept his report, did you? I'll let you do that first.
Okay. Is there any other questions before we have a motion to accept the report? Any other questions? Is there a motion to accept Mr. Santiago Corrado's report?
So moved.
There's a motion. There a second?
Second, Castor.
Castor seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please unmute yourselves. Ms. Williams, you please call the roll.
Castor?
Yes.
Bob Morrison?
Yes.
Frank Chilura?
Yes.
Jeff Antonesio?
Yes.
Joe Collier?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Lou Placencia?
Yes.
Nate Kilton?
Yes.
Richard Gonsmart?
Yes.
Okay, motion's adopted. Mr. Barton, you about to say something?
I just wanted to thank you all for today's meeting. Tentatively, our next meeting is November 5th at 2:30. We'll need to kind of sync that up with the board's role as the EPG. So we may or may not hold firm on that one. We'll just have to look at calendars. But thank you. This has been working well considering the circumstances. I'd be remiss if I didn't also just say our thanks to Santiago and Visit Tampa Bay. From the day that the pandemic started almost, Visit Tampa Bay started to make adjustments. Both Santiago and his staff and his board were on top of it. It seems like an obvious, but we know now, people like Lou and Joe and others that are in other markets, there were a number of CVBs that frankly were slow to make adjustments. I'll point some fingers and also note that I know many of you saw that Orange County, Florida actually paid bonuses in the beginning of the pandemic to their marketing people. It was just egregious activities. And so Santiago has really taken a hit in his staff, but he did so because it was the right thing. And frankly, I think he's probably led the way in the country related to how they made those adjustments, bit the bullet, and helped us, the county, as a funding element to balance the books, because it would have looked bad if they, in fact, hadn't been able to stay on their feet and adapt with the lower revenue streams that we allocated to them. So can't say enough about how much we appreciate Santiago and his staff and the board, because they did the right thing when a lot of other people didn't.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there any further business to come before us today? Any more business to come before us today? Seeing none, our next meeting, Mr. Barton will coordinate that with our schedules. That will be my last meeting. So I'll be bidding you all a fond farewell. So if there's no further business to come before us today, everyone stay safe. Please stay safe. And we'll see you soon. We adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wow.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care now.